Welcome to episode 23 of the Hoop Threads podcast. We got our NBA Roundtable back to talk about the NBA draft. So introduce yourselves real quick. Let people know where they can find you on Twitter, and then we'll get right into it. Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan Linedecker. Twitter, you can find me at Bilo, BILO_LC.
Tyler?
Tyler Seleni, you can find me at T Seleni. If you need to spell it, I'm sure Aaron's putting that in the little info thing.
Marcellus Boo, you can find me on Twitter at the legit CEO.
Fantastic. All right, so to our first question. Today, the CP3 trade went through. Talk about the ripple effects that's going to have on this draft. Anyone have a big opinion there?
Yeah, I'll take one on the starter.
Doing his best job to try to get every pick in the draft. I think he wants to have an entire draft all on his own.
The entire.
That's my biggest takeaway from that trade.
Jordan?
Yeah, it's a new take on a virtual draft if you only have one GM making all 60 picks. No, what I think stood out to me is that the Thunder ended up getting a 2022 first from the Suns. And I think there's been a lot of discussion about when the age limit rule is going to come into place and just just how valuable certain years draft picks are going to be. So I found it interesting. And obviously there's a lot of restrictions with, I think it's the Stepien rule where you can't trade draft picks in back-to-back years. Mm-hmm. So I just thought it was interesting that it was a 2022 pick because next year's draft seems like it's going to be loaded. So just the Thunder going after that, you just kind of wonder what sort of tea leaves they're reading with the league and this potential age restriction being lifted and how that plays into future drafts the next couple of years, because obviously, that goes up just beyond the Thunder into every team in the league. If the age restrictions lifted, you may see some teams tanking for 2022, 23 when there's some super loaded drafts with can't miss prospects coming up.
It's just so very on brand for the Minnesota Timberwolves to win the number 1 overall pick in this draft. Let's talk about next question's biggest draft day hot take. So I'm going to start. I think the Warriors doing what the Warriors do every year, which is just blowing smoke everywhere about who they're going to take. And I think they're going to take Onyeka Okongwu, my man from USC. I think he's just a phenomenal athlete. I think he fills what they need, which is a lob guy, defender, someone who can switch, through, wings and forwards and centers. I think he's a high IQ kid. He's really athletic and finish around the rim, and the jump shot is kind of iffy. I think that'll come along, and they don't really need him to shoot on that team. So I really like his fit there. Jordan, what you got?
Yeah, so to me, this whole draft is just going to be a hot take because this is going to be the most, unexpected. I don't think anybody has any idea what's going to happen. The whole lead up to it for the casual fan, has been so different because we're in the middle of football season and, everything's condensed. The new season starting in less than a month. With all that said, I just want to follow the tea leaves of John Hollinger. I saw him tweeting, I think it was yesterday morning, about the Trailblazers looking at Jaden Scrubb at the 16th pick in the draft, which would obviously be a lot higher than he's been mocked in most other areas. He's making the mid-second in a lot of drafts and not even getting drafted in some of them. But he was a guy who played JUCO ball. He's from the Kentucky area, originally played his high school ball there and was going to transfer to Louisville. Ran into some issues. I think it was medicals and eligibility, just a combination. He decided to sit the year out and go straight to the draft. And honestly, when I just look at the track record of the Trailblazers overall too, they haven't really picked the conventional guy in the last couple of years. They've had a few reaches and just they've done some interesting things in the draft that we didn't anticipate. So I'm looking for Jaden Scrubb to be a real possibility for the Trailblazers at pick 16.
Definitely hot.
My hot take is that a high school player gets drafted this year. There's a guy, Josh Hall, that went to Moravian Prep in North Carolina. He actually, due to some kind of eligibility loophole, is able to be drafted, similar to like how Jalen LeCue was able to be drafted and Anthony Simons was able to be drafted a few years before. And there's a lot of scouts that really like him. Maybe he's not a first-round talent, and he's got a couple of years before he can really contribute, in the NBA. But at the same time, he is going straight from high school to the league, which doesn't really happen at all because of the rules. So I'm very curious to see where he ends up going, and I think that he's going to be a really good NBA player very soon.
A freak athlete too. I like him.
Yeah, he's a really good shooter. I think that's my biggest thing. He's got a real good point forward feel. He's 6'8". Like I said, he can really. I saw him play against Legacy 2 years ago down in South Carolina, and he was just I think he might have only been rated maybe top 60, top 70 players in the country for his class at that time. And over the course of that year and this year, he's really risen up the boards, and now he's going to be a draft pick.
As a Blazers fan, how would you feel if they took Jay Scrub? I just gotta bring it there real quick.
I would be extremely disappointed. I feel like we have this problem having guards that don't play defense, and technically CJ McCollum is a point guard playing the two, but Jay Scrub is another one of those guys. I also don't think that he's proven. I think that he's a few years away, not just a couple. I think that he's maybe 3 or 4. He's played JUCO, and then he got a lot of hype and was supposed to go to Louisville and be a really good player, but he never played there. So I don't think that you want to take a first round pick on a guy you haven't seen play in over a year and a half.
Yep. Let's move right over to the next question. As the GM of your favorite team, who would you be targeting? And so I'm going to go first as the Cleveland Cavaliers GM. I'm going to take a lot of love for this guy, but Onyeka Okongwu. I think he would really complement what Kevin Love does. I'm looking at you, Tyler Selene, biggest Kevin Love hater in the world. I think he, would cover for a lot of his defensive deficiencies. Finish plays at the rim, is, like I said, really good in pick and roll, and can help make up for a lot of the defensive issues that, their 2 starting guards are not great defensively, and Kevin Love is not great defensively, and a lot of their rotation players are not good at that end of the floor either. So I think he would make a lot of sense for the Cavs at 5. Jordan, what you got?
Well, there's a lot of different ways the Jazz could go because they're picking down at number 23. They're in, win and compete to win now mode. But with that said, their GM this offseason kind of said, a bunch of GM speak, but basically they're looking to target very, flexible, versatile guys that can play multiple positions. It kind of seems like they're mostly looking to play on the wing, looking for shot creation, but not losing a step, really on defense. So to me, that leaves some of the wing guys out there, 2s, 3s, like a Josh Green. Don't really think he's going to be around at that pick. Could be Desmond Bane if he's available in that territory. But I've seen the Jazz linked to a lot of different positions in mock drafts. So there's no guarantee, but I would think they look at probably somewhere between a 2 or 3 in terms of positional fit. If there's a 4 out there, Quinn Snyder doesn't necessarily play the 4 much. But if I had to narrow down on one, I think Josh Green is my guy right now.
Wouldn't mind that at all. Tyler, what you got?
Well, this has kind of turned into a little bit of a problem over the past week because pretty much since so over the past few weeks, Sadiq Bey and Aaron Nesmith are my guys, and they've been just shooting up draft boards. I've even seen them, a couple of mocks having them inside the top 10. So as much as I'm still kind of rooting for those, if we got to get somebody in the first round, give me that guy. He can shoot, he can defend a little bit, he can create, a 4-year guy, and he shot at or around 40% from 3 his whole career. So give me that guy.
Who's this that you mentioned? You cut out for a second.
Desmond Bane from TCU.
I like it. I like that fit. What you got, Marcellus?
I like Jalen Smith, sticks from Maryland. I've seen him play a bunch, but at the same time, I think that for our team, our Blazers team, we kind of lack a defensive edge. We lack, I feel like, an athletic rebounder. He's also a guy that can guard multiple positions. So I think that's really our biggest thing right now, getting a little stronger on the glass and getting, like I said, a defensive edge to us. I think that our team, is obviously, by what we saw this past season, capable of scoring points. And I think that we also, losing Mo Harkless hurt us. He was a guy that played the 4, but could also play some 3, could knock down a couple shots, became a, much better shooter, and kind of was a glue guy for us at the forward position. So I feel like that would definitely help us having, a guy like Sticks that has some length, that can come off the bench, give us some energy, give us some hustle plays. I think that's really what we're missing right now.
He could step out and shoot it too. So front court of him and Zach Collins and Nurkic would be really versatile at the guard too. So yeah, I like that fit a lot as well. Let's move on to the next question. So who's a guy that's projected to go in the second round or an undrafted free agent that you believe in? I'm going to pick my guy, Mason Jones, 6'5", guard from Arkansas, SEC co-player of the year, averaged 22, 5, and 3.5, and he's mocked in the late second right now. Jordan shared a factoid that he was apparently 270 pounds in high school, which is pretty ridiculous body transformation to be able to put together. He's not a really athletic guard. He lost a lot of weight though, so that's a good sign about his dedication. He's kind of shifty, but he had 2 40-point games last year. I think he had 37 against LSU in a big win. I just really think that he can be a spark plug off the bench that can get a bucket. So I really like him. Jordan, who you got?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see here. I got a little bit of homerism. I got the Buckeyes hoodie on. I'm gonna go with my boy Caleb Wesson. He's kind of like what we hoped Jared Sullinger would turn into a few years ago, except Caleb Wesson can shoot the damn ball. Caleb Wesson knocked down, I think I was reading, it was 83% of his 3-pointers in one of his pre-draft workouts. So, I mean, he can shoot the ball. He shot it at 45% from 3, I believe, last season. And I have not seen him since last season ended, but even from, in between the past 2 seasons at Ohio State, he's underwent a tremendous body transformation, really slimming down a bit. And that's what he's going to have to do to stay in the league. And seems like it really was kind of Jared Sullinger's undoing overall for him, on unlocking his full potential in the league. So I like Wesson as a guy who's can do a lot of things. He does have a post-up game. Not that I think he's going to be asked to do that a ton, or it'll translate in the NBA. But if he gets thrown on a second unit there, he'll be able to get some chances posting up. He can pass out of the post. He's can draw some fouls with his array of post moves, and he can shoot the ball. So he can pick and pop a little bit. I don't think he's ever going to be known for his defense really out on the perimeter. He is a bigger guy, but he does have the ability to provide a little bit of rim protection. I'm not calling him an elite defender by any means, but I think he's a little sneaky in what he can provide you at the rim. So give me Caleb Wesson as a late guy. Don't know if he'll get drafted or not, but if he doesn't, my opinion on these late second round guys is honestly sometimes you're better off not getting drafted. So you can kind of pick your situation and go in and find a team and a fit that works for you. So really think Caleb Wesson does have a good shot at a future in the NBA.
Gotcha. Like that one a lot. Who you got, Selene?
All right, so I got just a couple of names. One of them, Tyshawn Alexander from Creighton. So he's 6'4", but he's got a 6'8" wingspan. He shot 37% on threes and 81% from the line. So pretty good sign that he's a good shooter. He's a good defender. He's got a little bit of playmaking, and he's often been described by his coaches as try hard, throughout this draft process, which I don't know. I kind of like that. Mm-hmm. And I also found this crazy stat that dude is in the 84th percentile or higher in the following offensive shooting categories: spot up shooting, transition, pick and roll as the ball handler, isolation, and cutting. So I think if he finds a place that can kind of utilize him as a secondary or third guy in the bench unit, I think he could really start to build something. The other one, Elijah Hughes from Syracuse, another 6'6" wing. I mean, at Syracuse, their offense sucked. So they didn't really have many options of what else to do other than just throw him into ISO and just say, hey, man, go find us a bucket. And other teams knew, their whole offense is give it to Elijah Hughes and they're going to have him ISO and try to get a bucket. So I think that if he can go somewhere where maybe he can get to play a little bit off the ball and get some open catch and shoots and maybe where he can ISO without the whole defense being in the paint, then I think maybe he could stick around as a nice second unit guy.
Marcellus, what you got?
Rocking with Omar Yurt 7 out of Georgetown. I feel like when I watched him at NC State always had some of those turmoil years where they were never really as good as they should have been due to point guard play or things of that nature, but he still had good seasons. You could tell he was a talent. And I believe when their coach left, and that's what ended up bringing him to Georgetown, and I think he played 2 years, and he had 2 really good years. Of course, Georgetown didn't really win as much, and they had their own issues with point guard play. But he was kind of one of the consistent factors to always be on the glass. He wasn't a real shot blocker, but he does deter a good amount of shots. He plays hard, and he's a very good back-to-the-basket scorer. I've seen videos of him playing with pros in summer league, or not summer leagues, but just open runs, and he's looked really good. I've seen his highlights. I've liked all of them. So I feel like he's a guy that he can contribute. I know that a lot of people don't like back-to-the-basket players or traditional centers, but I still think that they have a place in the game because, there's pretty often when you could just use that easy bucket. Also, you throw it into him. He's very unselfish, so he'll kick it back out. He'll pass the ball around the court. So I feel like he's a very good player that, I would want to have on my team as far as, just having a big, having a 7-footer. And I feel like eventually the NBA will come back to that. It's just trends. I think that right now, everybody's seeing positionless basketball. Let's shoot all the threes that we can. But eventually, every team is going to appreciate a basketball, having a big on their team. So that's my sleeper.
I like that. I want to throw in one more too that I forgot to mention at the beginning. So I really like Trent Forrest. He's a point guard for Florida State, started for them. He's a senior guard. He's 6'4", 210, averaged a little bit under 12, 4 and 4. I remember watching, he had a huge game against Duke at Duke in a game that Florida State almost won. He scored 18 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 block, 8 steals. With only 1 foul and 2 turnovers, matched up with a really highly rated point guard, Trey Jones, who's the ACC Player of the Year. And he really outplayed him, I think, that game. I think he reminds me a little bit of Kyle Lowry. He's just a bulldog in the paint. And defensively, I think he can be a menace. So I think it's going to be a situation where he's going to be an undrafted guy, maybe play overseas or, get once we get summer league back, get a summer league invite and then go from there. So I really like him going forward. Let's move on to the next question. One player that will shoot up draft boards and get picked higher than expected or will slide and get drafted a little bit later than expected. For me, I think that Obi Toppin might fit in this role. I think the Player of the Year votings, there's like 6 different ones, but he was obviously one of the consensus best players in college basketball this year. Really athletic, can score, good team player, good attitude, works really hard, has really transformed his body while at Dayton. I wonder if, his age starts to work against him. I feel like that's a really overblown thing. He's 22 years old and, at the end of the day, he's still 22. He's still a young guy. But I think that might lead to a draft day slide, or some team might be really high in him in the top 5 picks. And I don't know that I would want him with the top 5 pick, which means now the Cavs are probably going to draft him because I said that, but we'll see how that plays out. Jordan, what you got?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Theo Maledon, I may be butchering the pronunciation, but the French point guard. I've seen him mocked just outside the lottery, early 20s, but mostly comfortably in the first round. I kind of see a little bit of a slide like Elia Kobo had a couple of years ago, who ended up going, I think, with a first or second pick in the second round to the Phoenix Suns. But when you get back into the latter half of the first round, you're primarily looking at teams, that were in the playoffs last year, have really good solid rosters, and in general, pretty solid guard play as well. So they're not necessarily, looking for something that might be a little bit more of a project like that. So, I think Maledon slips out of the first. This isn't necessarily a reflection of my thoughts on him as a player, but just, again, more just a projection of what I think could happen in the draft and how teams will value him.
So, Lenny?
I think one of the guys that I've only recently kind of grown on this dude, but Emmanuel Quickly from Kentucky. He shot like 40% on threes and over 90% from the line the last couple of years. He might be 21 years old and he's 6'3", but he's got a 6'10" wingspan. I see him projected to go in the mid to late second round, but I wouldn't be surprised if a team kind of like one of the playoff teams ends up like picking him towards the end of the first round, thinking that, you know what, this guy can play a little bit of defense, and he can also do a little bit of playmaking, along with like that whole, that he was probably held back by playing at Kentucky. Let's see what he can actually do, kind of thinking that a lot of teams seem to have now. But yeah, I think one of those playoff teams might be willing to take a shot at him towards the end of the first round. So it isn't like shooting a high up draft board, but I think for a guy that was projected to go, like I said, I saw in one mock 46, another one 52, like for being at that range to shooting up to like in the late teens, early mid 20s, I think that one qualifies. So I'm going with that.
Best floater in college basketball too. He's
That too. He does got that.
Yeah, he can really
45% inside the paint there.
Yeah, he's scoring the paint. Marcellus, what you got?
I'm going with Cole Anthony slides into the second round.
Wow.
I've been seeing him drop, like, it seems like the entire season, actually. All the way from high school to now, he's only dropped. There's never been any time where it's like, his stock went up. It's always been, he's in the top 3 to now he's in the top 5, now top 10, top 15. And now we're seeing, he's a definite first rounder, but I don't know that people really feel that strongly about him. So that's my random, I guess, a guy that I think might drop.
It pains me, but yeah, I don't know about dropping out of the first round, but as a UNC fan, he was in a tough spacing situation, which is, I feel like now people are kind of seeing that, and there's a lot of injury issues, including him. I don't know if he drops out of the first round, but yeah, he definitely is sliding quite a bit right now, unfortunately. All right, so the next question, draft or pass? We're going to start with Jordan with LaMelo Ball.
I think I'm going to pass overall because I see a lot of people talking about him as the number 1 pick. And I think he does have the upside to get there, but I just think he has a considerable floor. It seems like his dad may have learned his lesson and might keep his mouth shut a little bit more the second time around. But I mean, you even have that potential, sideshow circus going on. So I think it's easy to get caught up in, unique measurables and, the potential of the talent that he has, can potentially bring to the table, but it's a lot of potential. I like to evaluate players on, what NBA ready skills can they bring to the league right now to step in and play. And I don't know that LaMelo has a lot that can just translate into the league on their own right now. Not good at shooting the ball, the same unconventional, unorthodox ball family shot. I guess it's just a family secret. I'm low on LaMelo, especially at number 1. I'd rather have Anthony Edwards hands down.
So Lenny.
And we already saw this with Lonzo. Like, I'll wait to try to get, if he develops into anything, I'll wait and try to scoop him on his second contract. Pass.
Marcellus.
I would draft him definitely not number 1, but I think 4 or 5. I feel like he's worth that. Now, maybe in this draft, because of what teams already have, I understand that they just say that he's the talent to go after because why not? But at the same time, I wouldn't draft him number 1. I just noticed that everywhere he goes, it just looks like the game is just way more open than it should be. In Australia, it seemed like it was a lot of that. In Lithuania, it seemed like it was a lot of the same thing. And even when he was in high school, he had a lot of big performances that, I don't really like his game, but it's like he still produced. So there's a lot of players out there that I feel like I don't like their game, but they still are good players. So I don't necessarily like him as a number 1 pick, but as a 4 or 5, I'll draft him.
I'm kind of with Marcellus, except I don't know if I draft him in the top 5. He reminds me a lot of Sean Livingston post knee injury. He just, he's a big guard that can handle the ball, distribute. I think his vision is really, really good. I think that's one thing that he can do. I just wonder if his attitude and his defense are going to stay positive and stay, I don't think he's going to be a good defender. He's really going to have to lock in and change a lot of the things that he does. I think he has a good basketball IQ. He just doesn't apply himself. And I wonder if in his rookie year, especially if he gets with an old school type coach that, doesn't put up with the fact that he doesn't defend and he seems like he has a superstar mentality. I think it's improved a lot since he was in high school. He seemed really immature in high school, and he seems like the overseas experience has helped him in that regard. But what do you guys think of that?
think he's a
So
pro.
is he just a Ricky Rubio with a few more inches on him? Is that what you're saying?
Now, Ricky Rubio tried harder on defense. He actually got some steals.
Okay.
I think that's one thing LaMelo is going to do. I think he's going to get a lot of steals. Like, he plays the passing lanes well. I think that
He's going to be on some Monta Ellis shit where, like, he'll get you maybe a couple of steals, but he's going to give up a lot more baskets from missing on those steals than he's going to actually pull off. So I'm with you there.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that he has the mentality at least to score. I think that if Lonzo had the mentality at least to score more often, then he would be a much better point guard. I think that that's where LaMelo, even though he's not as good of a shooter that Lonzo has turned into, I think that he will become a better shooter and he will be a serviceable scorer. And he's going to be a great, I guess, lead guard as far as facilitating. So I think he's going to have a pretty good career.
Got you. Next one, let's go to Jamias Ramsey. This is my guy. I draft him for sure. I think, his floor is J.R. Smith. And, while we laughed at that, I still think he can be a useful NBA player at his very worst. He's a good shooter. He's athletic. He's got a pretty good body. He just had a lot of just freshman issues when he played at Texas Tech. Just decision making, positioning wasn't great. And I think if he gets with a good coaching staff, I think he can be solid. So what do you got, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, you took a lot of the words I wanted to say. I'm also pretty high on Jamias Ramsey. I look at guys through college and as they go into the NBA draft that, were really highly rated coming out of high school. And for whatever reason, maybe they had a bad first year, didn't mesh well with a coach, team underperformed expectations. But to me, player development growth is clearly not something that's linear, and it's something that every player is on their own unique journey. So I'm not really that concerned by him potentially, underwhelming in his year at Texas Tech. I see a guy that can be a 3-level scorer in the NBA, and there are not many players that can say that. So, he's young, he's got time to grow. Absolutely, especially at the price of a late first-round pick. I would be all over that.
So, Lenny?
Yeah, I have 2 names written down for my hard hate. And one of them I forgot to give because I don't think he's going to get to the second round, but I'll bring that guy up later. But the other guy is Jamias Ramsey. I don't understand all the love for this dude. He shot 42% on threes, but he also shot 64% from the line. That probably means that 3-point shooting is going to come back down to earth, especially when you're not playing the same scrubs that Texas Tech plays. I feel like the dude doesn't have that good of handles. It's not that much of a playmaker. And I constantly see on that dude low effort on D, major red flag, hard pass on that man.
He plays in the Big 12. What are you talking about?
Thank you.
Acting like the Big 12 is all that good.
It's some of the best defensive teams in the country. So, I'm sorry. Not with
they're also home of some of the biggest chokers in the country. Looking at you, Kansas. Get out of here with that.
Marcellus.
I would draft Ramsey with the late first. I feel like he's Marcus Smart 2.0. I don't think that he's necessarily the best point guard, but he's going to defend point guards, and he's going to do a very good job of defending point guards. And he's not really a facilitator, but at the same time, there are plenty of guards that aren't great facilitators when they come in the league. Even Avery Bradley was trying to be a point guard, but he had a lot to improve on as a facilitator. So I feel like Ramsey could be a lot of that, and he's better scorers than Smart and Bradley. So I feel like he could at least be that. And if not, let's say that he's not that, I think that his floor would be something like a Wanamaker. Whereas he's an athletic guard off the bench that's going to come in and defend, give you energy, give you a couple of points when you need that, that little spark. And that's worth something. There's a lot of first rounders that aren't even that. So, I think I would be safe taking him as a late first.
Gotcha. Let's move to the next one. James Wiseman. He's a pretty polarizing guy. I feel like I think his tools are incredible. Obviously, his size and just his athletic ability. If I'm drafting him in the top 5, it's a pass. If it's past that, especially past 10, if he slid that far, I feel like he would really, really be motivated and change, turn some heads. But yeah, I'd overall pass though. I'm not a big fan. Jordan.
Yeah, I think in, a standard draft, we're all in agreement that this draft is one of the weaker ones we've seen in a while. So for me, he's a pretty good fit for the Warriors at 2. I don't know if I agree with him going that high. He has the potential to, really help them though immediately. And to me, it's tough to pass up on, guys with that size and the skill set that he possesses. I mean, I'll just end it with what I've seen from him in college and just throughout his career so far is just a player that hasn't necessarily always been challenged. He's just been able to coast by on the fact that he's just better than you and he can just dunk it on your head whenever he wants. But if you put him in a locker room with Steph Curry and you have Draymond Green busting him up, like he's going to be playing hard. So I am not a Draymond fan, but if he ends up with the Warriors at 2, like he is going to unleash a beast there is my feeling. So again, with this draft, I'd take Wiseman at 2 if I'm the Warriors.
So Lenny?
Tell you what, Wiseman, he did get challenged by the NCAA. How did that turn out? I feel like a guy like Wiseman, man, like they're so dime a dozen and replaceable. Like, I mean, every year you can go find a really cheap big man who maybe won't be quite as good as what we think Wiseman's potential is. But I mean, you can probably like go save probably $20 million a year and just pick up a guy out of free agency that can give you kind of some run at center. Like I don't think that he's a special shooter or ball handler. And those are the guys who really move the needle that you want to throw. Those are the guys you want to throw money at, like down the road. And I don't see him as being one of those guys. So I wouldn't want him like with one of the top picks.
Marcellus?
To me, first of all, I'd definitely draft him. I would take him number 1, actually. I don't know all of this shit the Timberwolves are talking about. We can't play him and Karl-Anthony Towns together. That's that superstar, new NBA stuff. Whatever. I would put them twin towers next to each other. They don't like to play inside that much anyway, neither one of them. So I'm like, all right, you play 50% in there, you play 50% in there, and y'all make that shit work. Now, granted, those coaches don't really exist in the NBA anymore, but that would be a dynamic duo. But since that's not going to happen, I would still take Wiseman as the Warriors pick because of the fact that I think that he's almost like Amari Stoudemire, but just now, like the modern day Amari Stoudemire. He can handle it just enough. He's gonna run the floor. We know that. He's gonna rebound. He's gonna block shots. And those things we know that he's going to do. Now, as far as what he does on offense, I think that if there's a structure already in place, like the Warriors already have, then he'll fit in. I think that he thinks he's good and he's probably thinks he's better than what he really is. But like Jordan said, he really hasn't been challenged his entire career, entire time he's played. He also hasn't played in, I guess, the entire season other than those 3 games, which he looked crazy dominant. He looked like he actually was turning the corner. Now, maybe he hasn't turned the corner. Maybe it's fool's gold. But at the same time, I mean, I feel like it's worth the pick. And we see that DeAndre Ayton has been a really good player for the Suns. I honestly feel like Wiseman is better than Ayton is. So, I mean, we'll see what comes from that. But I truly feel that from what we've seen out of both of them, especially if we're going to talk about the issues that Wiseman has as far as his motor, DeAndre Ayton had worse issues with his motor. So if we're seeing DeAndre Ayton put up 20 and 10 or 90, whatever he's putting up, I think that Wiseman can definitely achieve those numbers, especially if he goes and plays for the Warriors with all of that space that he's going to have.
A lot more Andre Drummond than DeAndre Ayton.
Hold on now. I mean, Chris Paul's going to be on DeAndre Ayton now. DeAndre Ayton's going to be like one of the probably block leaders, I bet, next year, because Chris Paul's always going to be riding that dude's ass to be better. And he's DeAndre Ayton. He can't say shit to him. So it's going to happen. Watch. Wait for it.
He talked a whole lot of shit to DeAndre Jordan. I'll be way more scared of DeAndre Jordan than DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, so he's gonna roast Ayton. Like Ayton is gonna be his son. He's gonna make that dude a borderline all-star though. Watch.
That's interesting. I mean, yeah, he's pretty close already right now. All right, last guy for this section, Pokusevski, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm pass on him. I think he's he fits in the mold of that skilled European big that we all drool over, and then he comes over to the NBA and he can't guard his position. He just gets bullied.
Like Kristaps?
Chill. Nah, Kristaps can actually play. He just, he's got a lot of skill, but it kind of just seems like once he plays against, defensive pressure in the NBA, it's not going to be what it's at. I've seen some mocks that have him in the top 10, like 8 or 9, and that's way too high for me. So I'm pretty low on him. Jordan?
Yeah, to me, he's just a player that there's, a few very specific good fits for him. Otherwise, I don't think there's many teams that are designed to put a first round pick into someone who's going to be a project to stash for a few years. I've seen him mocked to the Nuggets at 22. Honestly, that makes a good bit of sense to me. They've kind of taken some unconventional or more risky approaches to picks. They took Bol in the second round, took Michael Porter Jr. A couple of years ago when he slipped to 14. I don't think either of those were nearly as risky as this per se, especially since they're thinking that they're in, a pretty good run at a title here in the middle of the title window, see if they can build on last year. But the Nuggets make sense, but not many other teams do to me. It's got to be a team that has a proven track record of developing players and a team that, isn't really expecting anything out of them for a couple of years. Yeah, I mean, throw him in with the Nuggets. To me, it's just all about fitting him in with the right team. Whether he's going to become something, nobody knows really at this point. There's just so that he's unproven. We don't really know. But
the Nuggets do enjoy having 8 different big men on the roster, so I guess that would make sense. So, Letty, what we got?
Pokusevski, man, the D League is calling. They got 12 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 blocks a night with your name written all over it with bad efficiency. Pass.
Yeah, I'm definitely passing on this guy. Aaron, when the first time I heard about his name was?
When?
Today when we did the pre-production meeting. I never heard of him before. I've never picked these guys. I'm not going with him. So yeah, pass. No matter where he's 61, it doesn't matter. Pass.
All right, let's talk about the last question. So, who are your guys from this draft? Obviously, this draft is kind of wild. A lot of people call it weak. I think it's weak if you're looking at potential franchise players, but I think there's a lot of really useful rotation guys in this draft that could have carve out really useful careers rather in the NBA. So, my 5 is Najee Marshall from Xavier. Jamias Ramsey from Texas Tech, Yeko Okongwu from USC, Tyrese Maxey from Kentucky, and Killian Hayes. I think Najee really gets it done on the defensive end. He's got good measurables. His shooting numbers were somewhere around 30%. His form looked pretty good. There was a little bit of a hitch in it, but I think at the NBA level, he's going to be a really good 3-and-D guy. Ramsey, we already talked about, and my guy Okongwu, we already talked about a bit. Tyrese Maxey can just get a bucket. I think his draft stock has improved the last couple months as people have started to watch his film. I mean, I think he can just score. I don't think he's a facilitator, and I have some questions about his effort on the defensive end of the floor, but I think he plays pretty hard, and he's a pretty good leader. And Killian Hayes, I think just he has a really, really high floor to me because at the very least, he's going to be a tall wing that can handle the ball, has a really good IQ. His jump shot, I think, is solid. It's coming along. He can score in the paint a little bit. And like I said, I really just like his IQ. So I think his floor is really high, and I think he's a really set to have a good career in the NBA. Jordan, who you got?
All right, so I'm going to start out with my first one here just to kind of tee up Seleni a little bit down the line. And this isn't necessarily to say that he's my guy, but just that I've really come around when looking at who's going to be the number 1 pick. I'm big on Anthony Edwards now. To me, there's not really any other consideration. Him and LaMelo Ball have been the 2 that people have really been talking about. I think Edwards has a lot of tools, can score at 3 levels, and I think he can very easily get you 20 points a game in the NBA. And when you're picking at number 1 overall, you're looking for ceiling, you're looking for franchise player. I think he gives you a pretty decent floor as well. That's the concern I have with a lot of the other guys that are in contention for the number 1 pick is that they really have a big bust factor. I don't see that with Anthony Edwards. I think even if he doesn't necessarily have a successful career or successful first contract, that he's going to do enough to, get a second contract in the league. Whereas there's some guys that are in contention for this number 1 pick that I'm not sure that they get a second contract in the league. So enough about teeing up Seleni on Anthony Edwards here later on. I'm also a big Tyrese Maxey fan. Go back to what Seleni said earlier. I do subscribe pretty heavily to the theory about players just being unlocked once they get away from Kentucky and Calipari. They just have so much talent there. You look at some of the guys that have come out recently and really performed well. Tyler Hero, Devin Booker. I know there's a few others I'm forgetting off the top of my head. Yeah, Jamal Murray. I haven't mentioned Troy's boy James Young yet, flopping spectacularly, but yeah, no, just overall, like I'm a big fan of just the trend of what Kentucky players do once they get in the league. I think Calipari, I may not be a fan of him as a human being overall, but in terms of what he does to prepare his players for the league, he really does a good job of doing that. I think better than any coach in college basketball. He takes that seriously as a very important part of his job, because those are the types of players he recruits. So big on Tyrese Maxey. Couple other guys I'll throw out there. Zeke Naji out of Arizona, the big man. And I do like Paul Reed out of DePaul. He kind of slid down some draft boards. He was, when we were doing mocks 12 months out a while ago, was late lottery, late first round. And now he's really slid down to the second. His team, DePaul, had a pretty forgettable year in the Big East, only winning 3 conference games. But he's just got some attributes and skills and size that just can't necessarily be taught. So if you're getting him in the late second round, I think you're getting someone that has a pretty good chance to stick in the league and outperform his draft day value and contract value. So I could throw a few more out there, but I know these guys are chomping at the bit, so I'll leave it with those 4.
Just throw out the names real quick, and then we'll move on to Stanley.
Yeah. I was gonna say let Marcellus go, and then I'll clean up at the end.
Okay.
Because right now I'm writing a list, and my takes, I'm gonna condense them to keep them quick. So you guys go ahead and then kick it to me.
Well, I'll give you a couple more top 10s if you just want just a list of names. Isaac Okoro, Halliburton out of Iowa State. Aaron Nesmith was one I forgot to mention. He was one of my big guys. I'll throw out a little bit of background on him, just that I think he's the best shooter in the draft. And if you look over the track record of the last couple of years, generally the best shooter in the draft, even if they weren't necessarily projected to do that well. I'll throw out Cameron Johnston out of UNC that went to Phoenix eventually. He's carved himself out a little role in the league just by being a pretty good shooter. So I think Nesmith's going to be a good guy. Honestly, if the Suns hadn't made that CP3 deal, I think he might have been their target at 10. But now they might need some backup guard help there. But yeah, Nesmith, Halliburton, and Okoro, I said. Decent fan of the Florida State guys too. I think you can get you might see draft picks slots 6 through 10 outproduce the value of 1 through 5 when you look back at this in 5 years. That's just the kind of draft it is. So a lot of guys, in the back end of the top 10 that in the lottery that I might prefer to some guys going way above them.
Got you. Marcellus?
I've already talked about, I guess, with my 5. You're at 7, while I'm a fan of him. Same thing with Jalen Smith and Wiseman. My 2 that I would add to that mix is Anthony Edwards. I'm a big Anthony Edwards fan. I understand the gripes that people do have, and they are legitimate, but at the same time, I feel like he's a gamer. Like when those lights come on, he's going to be there. There's no question whether he's going to put up enough attempts, whether he's going to play hard. He's going to be out there trying to at least, if nothing else, get his numbers. If that gets you a win, I hope so. But he's going to at least be out there trying to play hard. There's a lot of guys that don't give you that, especially as number 1 picks or top 3 picks. And my last guy to finish out my 5 is Tyrese Halliburton. The fact that a lot of people haven't seen him, as of late, especially, I think that's always, that's very interesting as far as, him not having played. But at the same time, the fact that he continues to rise up draft boards over the course of this entire season must show you that his film, really popped out to a lot of people. And I guess his injury rehab has, gone extremely well. So I feel like, the fact that he continued to rise up draft boards after having a really good year, I think that was his sophomore year, I guess means that, I think he's going to be a really good player. So it's not just me thinking that just from watching his sophomore year highlights. Obviously, a lot of GMs think so too.
All right. Stanley, you have a solid 30 seconds to rebuttal, and then you can go through the guys that you actually like, which is the question.
Well, no, all right. Well, no, I kind of want to go the other way. I mean, because I mentioned the guys that I like are kind of the guys that I was hoping that my team would target. Guys like Sadiq Bey, Aaron Nesmith, even Desmond Bain. But other guys that I do like that aren't going to be there for when my team picks, Isaac Okoro, if he can develop, keep that jump shot consistent. I've come around on your boy Kanye. I think that he's going to be a light version of Bam Adebayo, so I do like him. Maybe even Devin Vassell, and then some of the other guys I mentioned Quickly and Tyshawn Alexander. So I do have some guys that I like in this draft. But then real quick now, let me just do the rundown of the boys that you guys are hyping up, that you guys are absolutely wild for. Anthony Edwards. My question is, who let Andrew Wiggins back in this draft? We already know he ain't got that much potential. Pass. Tyrese Maxey. Who let Colin Sexton back in the draft? Like the exact same guy. Get out of here. Like I'll wait for a second contract to pick up that guy once his game is actually developed. I don't want to draft him, have to wait for him to develop under my watch. Next, Ramsey. You guys keep calling him like Marcus Smart. How can he be Marcus Smart if the big knock on him is lack of effort on defense? I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Next, Tyrese Halliburton. While I do have a little bit of optimism, I'm going to throw him and Killian Hayes both in like kind of like the same regard, where like I do see those guys being able to lead a second unit. They can come in out the bench maybe. That dude Denny, like from overseas, no, pass. Like, sorry. We don't need to have a European guy in the top 5 every year. Like, why just because he's the best Euro guy means he has to go top 5? This is getting ridiculous. And then finally, I'm saving the last of it for the dude Nico Mannion, which I know, like, I forgot to throw in for my sliders. Like, whereas that guy was originally like about a year ago was projected as a lottery guy, and now that's not the case so much anymore. And like now they're saying like, oh, maybe late first, early second. My hot take that I forgot to give earlier was that dude ain't getting drafted. Like that dude, he can't shoot, he can't create, he can't dish. I'm sorry, Gingers, but Brian Scalabrine is still your king.
All right, there's a lot of wild stuff to respond to there. Sal, how do you feel about him disrespecting Nico Mannion?
I think Nico Mannion's going to be a good player for a long time. I think that he's the kind of point guard that you kind of need, a lot of teams need, to just facilitate, to just be a steady point guard, not really turn the ball over a lot. I think that maybe the first round, I've always thought that he's not as good as the scouts say that he is, but I think that I've always seen why they have him ranked highly, because of the things that he does do well. So I think that he's going to be a good point guard. I think he'll give you 9-10 points a game, and he'll be the guy to actually study his second unit. But that's about as best as I see him becoming.
I want to speak real quick on the Anthony Edwards disrespect. I mean, so some of this is biased. I watched him play. He played in Team Takeover's tournament at the Matha 2 years ago when he was in high school. And this man dropped 41 points. Terrible shooting from three. I think he was like 2 of 11, but he still dropped 41. Just got to the rim. Really athletic scorer. And one thing that I know Salendi's gonna bounce back on, but his teams have been pretty much him and a couple good players. You know, in high school, Holy Spirit prep, they had him and a couple shooters, and that was really it. And at not Indiana, I almost said Indiana.
Georgia.
Tom Crean was before Georgia. I mean, it was him and who? I mean, I think he's really had to score for his team to be successful, for them to have a shot to win the game. Some of the shot selection is bad as far as where he's pulling from, but I mean, even in high school, he just had like an NBA ready body, and in the off season, it looks like they've been saying that he's put on 20-30 pounds in the weight room. He's been really working out pretty hard in Atlanta. So I disagree on that. I think his floor is still, you know, an 18 points a game scorer. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Harrison Barnes, except with a little bit more range. Because that dude is pulling from deep. And I think he can be a pretty successul NBA player. So I have one last question that we did not prep for, just because I'm curious. So Duke's trio. So they have Cassius Winston, they have Trey Jones, and then they have Carey.
Cassius Stanley,
and then Vernon Carey. How do you guys feel about those prospects? I think that Cassius Stanley can be a really good value pick if it's in the late 20s. I think he's super athletic, works really hard. His jump shot's questionable, but you know, when a dude you can see that he's going to put in the work. And it got a little bit better from high school, but that's still a question mark. But he's just a freak of nature athlete. I like Vernon Carey. I mean, I like watching big men play and dominate in the paint. And that dude is his rebounding is just like the ball is like a magnet. around the basket. He's just so hard to keep off the boards, and I think there's some value in that as an energy big off the bench. And Trey Jones is pretty similar to his brother, except with the better on the defensive end of the floor, I think. So I like Trey. He's solid, but I mean, if I'm picking him top 15, I don't know how I feel about that. I think, if he goes a little bit later than that, he can be really good. So who's got some opinions on that?
Yeah,
I like Vernon Carey. I can definitely go. I can say that. I think that Vernon Carey is definitely a top 20 pick. In my opinion, I feel like he's going to score. I feel like he's going to rebound the ball. I feel like he's going to do what you need a big man to do. I think that he's a lot better than he showed at Duke, even because of the fact of Duke wasn't, I guess, typical Duke, or what we've expected of Duke. So that's how I feel about him. I think Trey Jones is a first round. To the end of the first round, I can see him sliding into the second. I think that he is a decent point guard. I actually like Nico Mannion better. I think that he's not going to – I don't think Trey Jones is even going to be Tyus. I just don't think that he's got that makeup. I think that maybe he may have, I guess more hype. And I almost want to say that he may be I guess he's a better defender because he's probably bigger. But outside of that, I don't think he has the same intangibles that make Tyus Jones the point guard that he is. Cassius Stanley, I feel like we've seen so many Cassius Stanleys, the guys that have all the tools and can't ever put it together. And I think that that's truly what he is. A lot of the same things that a lot of people feel about Anthony Edwards, I feel like it's really what Cassius Stanley is. He's been in the spotlight, for years, and he's never really produced at the level that people have expected him to produce at. So I don't think that's going to change once he gets to the NBA. I think he'll be a bench player that may have some decent games, some decent outbursts, but he's still going to be somebody that we're always waiting for the potential to catch up with. And I said Carey Jones, Cassius Stanley. Who's the last one?
No, you said you did all three.
Oh, I don't know why I thought there was a fourth, but yeah, that's how I feel about him.
Hey, because you're still thinking about that bum Nico Mannion.
He's gonna have a decent career, man.
Yeah, I'd rather take TJ McConnell than that dude.
Jesus.
Exactly.
Any thoughts on that Duke trio?
I like the only one. I mean, the only one that I really feel the type of way about that I would actually have some type of level of interest in picking would be Trey Jones, and it's under the condition that if I can pick him with a second round pick, mind you, I want to lock that man in a gym, and I'm telling him, boy, you're chilling there for 6 months with a ball rack. When you can shoot, then you can come join the team. Until then, get some shots up. The other ones I'll pass.
Okay, Jordan.
I'm waiting for front offices to come calling for Stanley to join them after hearing that pitch, putting players in the gym for 6 months straight.
He'll thank me for it later, man.
Quarantine.
Exactly. That's what he should have been doing.
These mocks I've been reading, honestly, I don't see much love for any of these Duke players in the first round. And I don't have the answer, but it's something I'll probably look up, and maybe Aaron can throw it as a little trivia in the comments for this. But when was the last time we didn't have a Duke player go in the first round of the NBA draft? Because these are the only ones that are even really draft eligible that are getting consideration, right? We're not missing anybody.
I think it's a pretty safe bet that at least one of them goes in the first round. I think someone's going to pick up on Trey. He's the ACC Player of the Year, and he gets after it defensively. He's just a solid point guard. But all right, any parting shots? Anyone got something that they left out? Feel very, very strongly about? Anyone have anything?
I noticed when Jordan was talking about OKC and their picks, I just thought about it, actually right after you said it. But OKC hired the lead scout, I think, to Rivals or 247, one of those companies. The lead high school scout, I think, is Evan Dams, either Evan Dams or Corey Evans, one of those two. But I'm just thinking about the fact if they hired the lead scout and they're racking up all these picks for the 2022 draft when Chet would be coming out, who we just saw, Amani Bates supposedly would reclass up and come out to be draft eligible. That is probably going to be the biggest draft that we've seen in some time. So that is kind of interesting that he pointed that out.
Corey Evans. Yep.
Corey Evans. Okay.
Yep. Stanley, Jordan.
Oh, Joe, you can go first because mine is more of a question for Marcellus.
What up?
But
Let Jordan get his bit out first.
I mean, I don't really have much. I think I got most everything out there. I've got I'm excited for this draft. I think it's going to be absolutely crazy. There's not many things that would surprise me. I just think it's going to be really interesting. I reiterate what I said a couple minutes ago that 6 through 10 really I I think they could outperform 1 through 5 in this draft. I just watching it as a fan, just hoping that the Jazz make a smart pick and just ready for fireworks everywhere else.
I feel like 20 through 30 could be better than 10 through 20 as well. Two other guys that I like that I want to mention real quick too. Malachi Flynn. He reminds me a little bit of Fred VanVleet, except he's less of a scorer and more of a distributor. His assist to turnover ratio was ridiculous. He led San Diego State to a great year. I think they would have made some noise in the tournament. Just really solid player. I think he's going to have a pretty long, successful career in the NBA. I don't think he's going to be a star. And then another sleeper, Leandro Bolmaro. I think he's a real solid wing that could develop into something. I think his first year or two is going to be a little difficult getting used to the NBA, especially living over here. But I think he's got some of the physical tools and some of the abilities that I like seeing out of prospects. And the last thing too, for a slide that I could see happening, I could really see RJ Hampton sliding.
Ooh, yeah, we didn't talk about him at all until now.
RJ Hampton.
What do you want to talk about?
Can we talk about he's the second coming of Dante Exum?
Exactly.
That's
the best player in the league in 6 years.
If he gets healthy, that's always the caveat.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he's a hyper athlete that can be a decent defender off the bench. He's a guy that chucks up a couple too many shots and just they don't fall. I'm not super big on him. I do really like. I think it was Stanley that picked Elijah Hughes as a sleeper. He's a freak of nature athletically. He can really get up there. And his shot creation is pretty good. He's got some good range. And I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. So yeah, that's what I got. Tyler, what's your question for Marcellus?
Well, no, it's just because when I was doing like my little like kind of rant where I was listing off names, I forgot to throw in that dude Jay Scrubb. If he does go in the first, like he would also make that list. But I just wanted to clarify something earlier that Marcellus said when he said that he thought that Jay Scrubb was a couple of years away. What did you mean? He was a couple of years away from Europe? Like, what are we talking about?
He's
Like,
definitely a couple of years away from being able to contribute to any team in the NBA, at least more. I think more than that.
I don't know, man. I don't exactly see in the future or any like Doctor Strange universe where there's kids running around with Scrub on the back of their jersey. I don't see it. I don't see it.
Well, it's the famous Fran Fraschilla line. He's a couple years away from being a couple years away.
There you go.
He's a couple of years away from Europe.
All right, guys, it's been a great time chatting up with you guys. Appreciate the time. Let the people know where they can find you on Twitter again. We did at the beginning, but we can do it again.
Still at Belo_LC.
Seleni.
At T Seleni.
And Marcellus.
At the legit CEO.
Fantastic. All right, guys. Looking forward to talking to you guys through the draft. It's going to be a crazy, crazy day. I think a lot of trades are going to happen too. So take care. Talk to you soon.
All right.